We begin today the Gemara on Daf Kuf Yud Beis Amud Aleph at the right at the beginning of the Amud where it says Rav Ade Bar Ahava. So this is connected to the sugya before, the beginning of the Perek. The first Mishnah of this Perek talks about a Gazlan. He stole something and then he left it for his children. And he passed away. So now the Mishnah says that the children don't have to return this Gzela. So the big question is, why not? The actual item that was stolen is still here. What difference does it make that now the children have it? So the Gemara brought two pshatim. Bava Kama says the reason is because children that inherit an object that was stolen, they're like a lekeah, they're like a buyer, it's like a nudishus. And therefore, the case in the Mishnah here is that there was a yiyush, the owner of it was miyayish, gave up, and there's a shinudishus because of the yerusha here. And the yerusha is like a lekeah. That's Bava Kama's pshat. Rava said the Mishnah must be talking about a case where the children then went and ate up this gzela. It doesn't exist in the world anymore. In such a case, you don't have to return it. If it was still here, so then the children are not like keyat. The children are just a yerusha. It's like the same rishus of the father, so they would have to return it. That was the machlekes regarding the pshat in the Mishnah. So the Gemara is going to bring similar machlekes between Bava Kama and Rava in a case where the father left over for the children money that was earned from ribis, from interest that the father charged, which is also, of course, an isser to charge interest on a loan. Same kind of machlekes here. Let's see. So the Gemara, Rav Ade bar Ahava mastin lo had Rami Bachama aha. Rav Ade bar Ahava brought this that Rami Bachama said regarding here this Mishnah. The father left for the children money that was earned from interest. Even if the children know that this is money from ribis, they don't have to return this money to the father. So again, over here, the question is, why not? This is money that was forbidden to collect, doesn't belong to them, and the money's still here. Why shouldn't they return it? So on this, Rami Bachama explains, this Mishnah teaches us that Rishus Yairish, the possession now of these inheritors, is Kirishus Lekeach Dami. It's like they're buyers, so it's like a new ownership, a new possession. So therefore, there's the yish. The case of here must be that the person that paid up this interest, he gave up on it, so there's a yish. And besides that, there's a shinur rishus. It's now in a new possession, and therefore they're kain it, they don't have to return it. That's what Rami Bachama explained regarding this case, similar to what we said regarding the Mishnah by Gzela. Rava gives a different explanation here. Really, I could tell you, rishus yedish, lav kerishus lekeach dami. That the Yerush, the children that yarshan this interest, they're not like buyers. It's still like in the rishus of the father. So why don't they have to return it? The shani hacha over here, though, when it comes to ribis, even though the ribis still exists and they didn't eat it up. Rava, regarding the case of Gzela, Rava explained that you're going to have to say the case is that they ate up the Gzela. The Gzela is not here anymore. But here regarding ribis, Rava says no. By ribis, there's a pasuk that tells us that the children will not have to return it. Why? The pasuk says, Al tikach me'itay neshach v'tarbis. Do not take ribis, interest on a loan. The pasuk there continues and says, V'yereisam elekecha, and then v'chei achicha imach. Your brother should live with you. If he needs a loan, give him a loan and he should live with you. That's the pasuk there. So from this pasuk, Rava says, we learn out, ahadele, give him back this interest. Even if you charged him interest, you must give it back to him. Why? So that your brother should live with you. Give him a loan and give it to him on an interest-free loan that he could live with you. So now, from this pasuk we learn, lididei kamazile rachmana. The Torah is warning the father, meaning the person himself that charged the interest, to give it back. However, for the son, which didn't charge his interest, he doesn't have the obligation to return it. It's different than Gzela. Gzela, when you steal something, obviously it always has to be returned. Here, when the interest was charged, the person that paid the interest, he agreed to pay the interest. It wasn't taken by force. Elamai is an issue. You're not allowed to charge interest. The father, the one that charged the interest, he has an obligation to give it back, but the son can keep it. That's Rava's pshat. So now the Gemara explains, Man the Masnila Braise, the one that says that Rami Bachama taught what he said here regarding this Braise, that we're talking about a case over here, that Rami Bachama taught this concept that once it goes into the possession of the Yerush, then this is like a Lekeach, it's Yush, and it's Shini Rishus. So the one that says that Rami Bachama taught this over here in the Braise, so Kol Shekena Masnissen. Definitely he would say that Rami Bachama taught the same regarding the Mishnah before when it comes to Gzela. Over there in that Mishnah, when it comes to Gzela, there is no explanation, according to Rami Bachama, why the children will be able to keep this gzeila if the gzeila is still here in the world, other than saying that there's Yush and Shini Rishus. So definitely Rami Bava Kama would have to apply that logic over there regarding the Mishnah. But on the other hand, though, Man de Masni Law Amas Nissen, the one that taught what Rami Bava Kama said regarding the Mishnah, Avla Braise, Rami Bava Kama Kerava Masni Law. Maybe over here in this Braise, he would agree to what Rava says. Because when it comes to the Mishnah over there, the only way to explain it, according to Rami Bava Kama, is to say that there's Yush and Shini Rishus. Unless you say like Rava. Rava said a very big deichik in the Mishnah. Rava said that the case in the Mishnah is that the Gzela is not here anymore. The Gzela was eaten up. That's not what it said in the Mishnah, though. That's not the simple pshat of the Mishnah. If it's not eaten up, so then according to Rami Bava Kama, you're going to have to say that the Yushus of the Yodesh is like a Rishus of a Lekeach. And that's why you don't have to return it. But over here though, in this Braise, there's no proof to say that the children are like a lekeach, because over here Rami Bava Kama could agree to this pasuk, the Rav Darshan. Over here you have a pasuk that says that even if the children are not like a lekeach, but nevertheless the obligation to return interest is only on the person himself that charged it, and not necessarily on the children. So therefore, because over here you have this pasuk, it could be that Rami Bava Kama agrees to Rava. Tana Rabbanon, in connection to this, the Gemara brings a few different braises that discuss the case where a person stole and left it for his children. So Tana Rabbanon, one braise we learned, Hagaizel umachal es bonav. A person steals and he gives it to eat to his children. Peturim ilashalem, they're potter to pay. Now that the gzela that is, the item is not here in the world anymore, they ate it up, the children are potter to pay. Hiniach lefneim, if the father left it for his children, and the Gzela is still here in the world, Gedalim Chayavim L'Shalom. If these children are Gedalim, so they're above bar mitzvah, they're obligated, they have responsibility for everything they do. So the Gzela is in their possession, they're going to be chayiv to pay. Now, according to Rami Bava Kama, this must be talking about a case where there was no Yush. Because as we just explained, if there was Yush, then even if the Gzela is still here, but there's a Yush, and then there's a change of possession, there's a Shini Rishus, because the child is like a Lekeach. So this is before Yush. Ketanim, if these are children that are yashining this Gzela, and it's in their possession, Peturim Ilashalem, the children are going to be potter to pay. The Gemara is soon going to discuss this. The reason why children are potter to pay, according to this opinion, there's actually a machlekes about this, as we'll see. According to this opinion, the reason they're potter to pay is because you can't ever take money out of the possession of children, because you're going to have to bring eidos that this is a stolen item. And you can't have any testimony in a bezdin when it's not in the presence of the Baal Din, when it's not in the presence of the person. Children, it's like you're taking money away from them, not in their presence, because they're children. They have no understanding of what's going on. So therefore, if it's children, even if the Gzela is here, you can't take it away from them. One second. What?
Even if they use.
Yeah, even if not Yish, exactly. Now the Braisa continues and says, even the Gedalim here, these children, if they say, they come and say to this person, you're claiming that this item got stolen from you. Not only claiming, let's say claiming. Let's say the Nigzal comes and claims that this item got stolen, and the Gedalim come and say, we don't know. Could be our father paid it back, could be he didn't, Peturim. So the children will be potted to pay this Gzela. That's what it says simply in this price here. So the Gemara asks on this, if the children are coming and saying to the Nigzal, we don't know, maybe our father paid back, they would be potter for this reason. Why should they be potter? The question of the Gemara is, here you have a Nigzal which comes with a tainas body. He's sure that this item was stolen from him and he never got paid back. And here, what do the children respond? Maybe our father paid you back. Bari v'shema, in such a case, everybody agrees, bari adif. Even though in the other places in Gemara where it says there's a machlekes about this, but not in this kind of case. In this kind of case, where the children agree that the money was stolen, they're just saying, maybe our father paid you back. In such a case, everybody agrees that the body, the nigzal that's saying that this money got stolen from me, for sure they should have to pay it back. So the Gemara answers, we must read the Braisa differently. Amar Rava hachi ka'ama. This is what the Braisa meant to say. Gedalim sha'amru, yaidim anu cheshbayne shechashav avinu imach. We do know all calculations that our father already made with you, and v'loy pashlach gabei v'loy midi. And there's nothing of the stolen item or money that's left by him, and he did pay you. So the children are coming with a tainas body, that for sure the father paid you. Then peturim, then they'll be potter. So based on what the Gemara say here, Taisva says, the Mefarshim say, in one shot at least, that the Gemara must be talking about a case that the owner, the Nigzal, doesn't have edus that this item was stolen. This Nigzal is coming just with a claim. He comes with a tiniest body. Here, this item that you have was stolen from me. So then, their tiniest body, they can come and claim, no, we know for a fact that the father paid it up. But if the Nigzal would come with an edus, if he has proper edus that this item was stolen, so then a tiniest body just to say that it was paid up would not work. According to one shot of Aaron Taisvis. Okay. Let's go weiter. So the Gemara now brings another brisa about this. Tanya Idach, in a different brisa we learned. Hagaizel umachal banov, a person that steals and he gives this gzela to eat to his children, peturim milashalem yipata to pay, like it said in the Mishnah and in the previous brisa here. He left it over for his children and the children ate it up. Bein gedolim, bein ketanim, whether it's gedolim, whether it's ketanim, chayavin, they're chayiv to pay. So here it says that even ketanim, children that have no idea what's going on, they're also going to be chayiv to pay. So the Gemara wonders on this right away. What does this mean? Ketanim, mi mechayvi. Children, would they be chayiv to pay such a thing? We can't ever obligate children to pay for any damage, for anything that they would owe. Why? Because children have no das, they have no understanding of what's going on. We can't be mechayev them to pay anything. Even if they go, even if a child goes into someone's property and is mazik, you pater. We learned this earlier in the Masechta. What a cotton does, you can't obligate him to pay. So what does this brayse here mean? Rav Papa explains, Hachi ka'amar. This is how you have to read what this brayse said. Hiniach lefneyem va'adayin lo yacholum. If the gzela, the father gave to his children, and the children did not eat it up yet, the item is still there, then ben gedolim ben ketanim chayovin. Then whether the children are gedolim or the children are ketanim, they will be chayiv to pay for this. If it's still in their possession, they will be chayiv to pay for this. So this brayse actually argues with the previous brayse, because here it's saying that ketanim, as long as the gzela is still there, they are going to be chayiv to pay. And before we said that in the presence of ketanim, you can't ever take anything from them, even if you're going to bring edim that it was stolen, it doesn't matter. Because ketanim, as I said before, it's like you're taking something away from a person, not in his presence. But here this brayse says, no, by ketanim, if the gzela itself is still here, you could take it away from them. The Gemara is going to come back to this on Amid Beis to discuss this more in detail. But here, first it brings another halacha. Rava says, the father left for his children a cow that he borrowed from someone. And let's say the time for this loan of this cow that he had, it's still in the middle of this time, and the father passes away. So now, the children can continue using this cow for all the time period of this loan of this cow. Now, Mesa, if the cow dies in the possession of these children, ain't chayavim b'inself. They're not going to be chayiv to pay if it died by something that's out of their control, by an einus. Even though a shayl, a borrower, is always responsible even for an einus, but that's the borrower himself. The children that didn't borrow, they just inherited it from their father in this condition of this cow here being borrowed. They never took upon themselves to pay for an einus. So if an einus happens, they'll be pater. Now, what if the case is different? Kisvuren shel aviyemi. They find this cow in their father's possession. They have no idea that it's a borrowed cow. They think that it belonged to their father. Utavchua, so they shechted it and they ate it. And now they find out that it doesn't belong to their father. It belonged to somebody else. But now what they did is totally not their fault. They didn't realize. Mishalmen demei basa b'zoil. They're going to have to pay for the meat that they have here and that they're eating, and they're having a benefit from this. They're going to have to pay the cheap price of this meat. The shear of the cheap price of this meat is they have to pay 2/3 of its value. That's this halacha. This is a halacha that's actually based on something that we learned earlier in the Masechta in Perek Ketzet Haregel. The Mishnah there says, even in a case where a person is pater as a mazik, various cases there, the Gemara brought up when a person is pater as a mazik, but you still have to pay for the actual hana that you had. But you don't pay like a mazik, which pays full price. You pay for the hana, which is only 2/3 of the price, because you can get that sometimes cheap in the market, so you have to pay 2/3 of the price. So here as well, they're not chayiv to pay for this, that they slaughtered this. They had no idea that it didn't belong to the father, but they have to pay for the cheap price. Then the Mishnah says, if the father also left for his children properties, which are called achrayis nechasim, properties that you can take responsibility for them to pay up a loan. So now they have properties they inherited from the father. Chayav and l'shalem, they'll be obligated to pay. So here the Gemara will explain this last line here on this that Rav said here. What is it going on? Is it going on the beginning of what he said, when there's a loan here and there was an einus in this cow, or in the second case where they slaughtered it, not knowing that this belonged to a shoyl? So ikedamasnila areisha. There are those that said that this last line over here goes on the reisha, and the ikedamasnila seifa. There are those that said that it goes on the second case of the brayso. Right, so which means like this: if you say it goes on the reisha, that means that in this case where it says that if they slaughtered, if there was an einus, the reisha is not the case of where they slaughtered it. The case is where the einus happened, and there it says because they are not the shoyl himself, they're potter. But then on that the brayso says even though they should be potter, but if there's a property that they inherited from the father, so then there's a shibud on that property for this loan. For this that the father took responsibility for this loan, and therefore they will have to pay up for the einus from this property. That's if it goes on the reisha. Now, or it could go on the seifa. The seifa is this case where they slaughtered the cow. Right, so we said over here in the seifa they don't have to pay full price. They only have to pay bezol, 2/3. And on that, the seifa is saying, however, if they have from the properties of the father, then the owner could collect from those properties full price for this animal that was slaughtered here. So now the Gemara explains, Man the masnila reisha, the one that says that we say this last line regarding the properties, that it goes on the reisha, that the owner could collect from the properties when there's an einus, kol shekena seifa. Most definitely the same thing would apply to the seifa as well. Uplige der Rav Papa. And this is arguing on a point that Rav Papa said, which the Gemara is going to quote soon. The point over here that the Gemara is going to bring out with what Rav Papa says here is as follows: when a person borrows something, at what point does the obligation of payment begin? One way to understand this is when you borrow something. So now, as long as you're borrowing it and it's in your possession, it's yours to use, to keep, to do with it whatever you want. Now, when do you have to pay for it? When the time is up, when the time of the loan is up, or let's say an einus happens and it dies. At that moment when it dies, that's when your entire chiyuv begins to now return it to the owner. But up until that point, when you're borrowing it, it's yours to use and keep. That's one way to understand this. Another way to understand this is no. The moment that you get it into your possession, it's that moment that the chiyuv begins, that your chiyuv, your obligation to return it to the owner begins. So therefore, later, when an einus happens, if the animal dies, you have to pay. But why do you have to pay? Because right from the beginning, your chiyuv began. Right, so as we'll see soon, the Gemara is going to say that according to Rav Papa, the chiyuv begins when the einus happens, not at the moment when you got it in your possession. So over here, if we're going to say that this case of the father, the leftover properties, and therefore the owner can collect now from these properties, what does that mean? Why could the owner collect from these properties? When the einus happened, if you're looking at the time of the einus was in the possession of the children. And the children don't have any obligation to pay up for this einus that happened in their possession. They're not the shoyl. But nevertheless, the brayso is saying that if there's properties from the father that they inherited, we collect from those properties for what happened over here. Why? It must be that the reason is because the payment for this loan begins from the time of the beginning, when the father got it into his possession. So since the payment, the chiyuv begins from the beginning, so therefore there's a shibud on the karka, there's a lien on these properties of the father right from the beginning. So therefore, even after this person passes away, if an einus happens, you collect from those properties. That's if it goes on the reisha. So this argues on Rav Papa, as we'll see, Rav Papa holds that the obligation of the payment only begins later, when the einus happened, and then it's already out of the original borrower's possession. On the other hand,
even it's not karka, even it's metal also.
No, but the shibud of a payment is only on karka. There's no the shibud. No, shibud is not a metal.
Why would you get the thing? Why would the chiyuv starts?
But the einus was that the cow itself died. So the cow itself, you're not returning. You have to pay for it with something else. The shibud only goes on karka, not on any other kind of thing. On the other hand, man, the masin law sefer, the one that says that it says here that there's a property from the father that you have to pay with it, that it goes only on the sefer of the Mishnah where these children now went and shechted it and they ate it on their own. But then on the reisha, and in such a case where there was an oinus that happened over there, you're not going to collect from these properties. V'haina de Rav Papa, and this is like Rav Papa says, and the reason is because the oinus that happens. So this oinus happened in the possession of the children. The oinus is the time when the chiyuv starts. So if the oinus is the time when the chiyuv starts, you can't collect from the properties of the father. There's no shibud on the properties of the father. On the other hand, though, in the case in the Sefer where the children ate from this animal, they slaughtered it and they ate it for them. They ate it for themselves. So over here, Rashi says something. It's not so clear what Rashi is saying here, but the Mefarshim explain in such a case you will collect from the properties of the father because this is considered to be a negligence on the father's behalf. If a father has a cow in his possession and he's passing away, he should let his children know that it doesn't belong to me. Don't slaughter it. Don't use it for yourself. This is something he should leave some kind of documentation or something that the children should know that they have to return it to the owner. So because this is a pshia on behalf of the father, so therefore, in this case, you will be able to collect from the father's properties for this, for the fact that the children went and slaughtered it. Now, where's the source of what Rav Papa said regarding the subject? Rav Papa said the following halacha. Rav Papa didn't say this idea clearly, but from something else that he said, we can see what he held about this idea. Again, the discussion over here is, at what point does the obligation of payment for a she'ela, for a loan, begin? At the time when you receive this item, or later when the oinus happens? So Rav Papa said as follows: if a person stole a cow, and then the tafcha b'Shabbos, and went and slaughtered it on Shabbos, so then when you steal the cow, you have to pay back the keren, the principle of this cow itself, and you have to pay kefil as well. But then if you slaughter it, what's the halacha when you slaughter it? You have to pay an additional knas, right? As we learned, dalet v'hei, 4 or 5 times as much. So the Braisa says, or Rav Papa actually said, chayiv, even if this is done on Shabbos, you're going to be chayiv. Now, what's the chiddush here? Usually we know that there's a halacha called kamle b'derab minei. Since he slaughtered it on Shabbos, you chayiv misa, you should not be chayiv to pay money at the same time. But over here you are chayiv, and the reason is kamle b'derab minei does not apply to a payment of money which is just a knas. If you chayiv to pay a real tashlumin of money that you owe someone, then you don't pay if you chayiv misa. But a knas you pay even while there's a chayiv misa. And over here we say like this: the basic chiyuv of the money that you stole, that already happened before Shabbos. So therefore, on Shabbos you only chayiv for a knas. So knas you chayiv even on Shabbos when you chayiv misa. However, if a person borrowed a cow and then the tavcha b'Shabbos and he went and slaughtered this cow on Shabbos, so what happens over here in this case? Potter. In this case, he will be potter. Why? Because over here I do apply the concept of kamle b'derab minei, that because he's chayiv misa, so therefore he doesn't have to pay for this. She'is Shabbos, when he slaughters it on Shabbos, that's a chilul Shabbos that he's chayiv misa for. And the isa geneva. And also, it's at that moment that he's stealing it, ba'am kechad, the chiyuv of the payment of the money and the Isser of Shabbos come at the same moment, and therefore, kamle b'derab minei, he gets the harsher punishment of Misa and he doesn't have to pay. Now, what do you see over here from what Rav Papa is saying? What you see from what Rav Papa is saying is that when's the moment of the obligation to pay this money for this animal that you borrowed? The time when you shechted it. That's the time when the obligation begins. So therefore, if it happened on Shabbos, which there was a chilul Shabbos at the same time, you'll be potter. But if we're going to say that when you borrow a cow, the time of the obligation of the payment begins at the moment when you borrow it, when you receive it into your possession. So then the chiyuv of the payment really began already before, the moment you received it in your possession. So therefore here, when you shechted it on Shabbos, you're not paying over here. The time of the chiyuv did not start at the time when you shechted it. The time of the chiyuv began when you borrowed it. So therefore, why should it become kamle b'derab minei? The chiyuv of the money was already from before Shabbos, and the chilul Shabbos is on Shabbos. It's 2 different times. So here we see that Rav Papa holds that when you borrow a cow, the chiyuv of the payment does not begin at the time when you borrow it. It begins on Shabbos itself, at the time when you shechted it. Or the same thing would be, according to Rav Papa, when an oinus happens, the chiyuv of the payment begins at the time of the oinus.
But he's better only because he's chayiv
only because he's chayiv misa, correct? Yeah. Tana Rabbana, we look in the Braisa. Now this comes back here to a basic explanation for the halacha that we had in the Mishnah in the beginning of the Perek and mentioned here before as well. When a person steals something and he gives it to his children to eat, So in such a case, his children ate it up, you're going to be potter for this. Why are the children potter when they ate it up? So the Brisa says, Tan Rabbanon v'heishev v'sagzela asher gozal. That the Torah says, return the gzela that you stole. Mat tamud loima asher gozal. What is the meaning of provides the extra words of asher gozal? It means yachzer ke'en shegozal. Return it when it is in the same situation as it was when it was stolen. What does this mean? Does that mean that if the gazlan himself eats it up, then he won't be chayiv to pay the value, the money for it? That can't be. By the gazlan himself, even if he ate it up, he's for sure going to have to pay money for it. So what does it mean here when we darshan that you don't give it back ken shegazal? We had the same thing earlier in the Masechta. Earlier in the Masechta, the Gemara darshan from this, that here we learn out the halacha of a shinui. That once there's a shinui, when there's a difference in the condition of the object that you stole, so you don't pay back the object itself, you only pay money. But here the Gemara is going to darshan that we learn from here that you don't have to pay at all. When is it that you don't have to pay at all? Amru, so they said, Mikan Amru, that is from here we learned that Hagaizel umachal is banov. A person steals and then the children go ahead and eat it. Peturim b'lashalem, the children are potter to pay. This is the source for this concept. So over here, this is the source of what it says. When the children eat, we're talking about a situation where he's giving to his children to eat, even when the father is still alive. The children are sitting around this table and the children are eating from it. Why should he be potter to pay? Even if there's a yish over here from the father, or from the owner that is, but there's no shini rishus here. Only time, before we explain that when the father dies and the children have it, so maybe there's a yish and there's a shini rishus. But over here we're talking about a situation where there's no yish and shini rishus. Maybe there's only yish, but the children went and ate it. So why should you be potter? That's what the Gemara is bringing here, this pasuk. Tosfos actually says earlier on Daf Kuf Yud Aleph that this pasuk is just an asmachta. This is not the real source. And really, this idea, once the children eat it, you potter, is because even though there's no real proper change of Yush and Shini Rishus to potter you, but nevertheless, once someone else ate up the Gzela, you're going to be potter. And there's actually a few opinions about this, based on what it said before in the Gemara. It could be this is only when there's Yush, could be even when there's no Yush, according to what Bava Kama said before in the Gemara, or maybe it was Rav Chisda, I remember who it was before in the Gemara, even without Yush. If the children eat it up, they're going to be potter. Because once it's out of the possession of the owner, and now someone else ate it up, over here the chiyuv of the Torah to return it does not apply. Okay, the Brisa continues and says that if it's a case of hiniach lifneyem ben gedolim ben ketanim, if the gzela was left for the children and they inherited it from the father, like we spoke about before, whether they'll hear it, this Brisa says ben gedolim ben ketanim, whether the children are gedolim or ketanim, chayavin, the children will be chayav to pay. Now mishum sumchas amru, here we see this argument about the ketanim. Sumcha says no, gedolim chayavim, the gedolim they're chayav to pay. Ketanim peturim, but the ketanim are going to be potter to pay, even if it's a case where the person brings edim and there's no yiyushir and the children should be chayiv to pay. But according to Sumchis, you could never collect from ketanim. And the reason is, as I explained before, because ketanim, it's like collecting from someone not in his presence. You never could bring edim in a din Torah and collect from someone not in his presence. Connection to this klal, so here this is a machlokes here between Sumchis and the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan say you could collect from the ketanim even though it's like you're collecting not in their presence. Sumchis says you can't collect because you can't take from someone not in his presence. So now the Gemara will get into this subject and bring a story about this idea. Bar Chamud Rabbi Yirmiyah, the son of the father-in-law of Rabbi Yirmiyah, in other words, the brother-in-law of Rabbi Yirmiyah, this is what happened over here is, Rabbi Yirmiyah's father-in-law passed away and left the house. So now the son, which is the brother-in-law of Rabbi Yirmiyah, Tara Gali Baped Rabbi Yirmiyah. He locked the door in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah, didn't allow Rabbi Yirmiyah to come in and take possession of this house. As we'll see here, the story basically was, after Rabbi Yirmiyah's father-in-law passed away, Rabbi Yirmiyah claimed that his father-in-law gave him the house as a gift. And the son took possession of the house now, and the son said, no, I'm the son, it's mine, I inherited it from my father. And he didn't allow Rabbi Yirmiyah to come into the property. That was their argument.
He was a minor.
What?
He was a minor.
Was he a minor? Yeah. So the son was a cotton, exactly. Yeah, as we'll see, that's the whole story over here. The son was a cotton, yeah. So now what happened? Asala kamei de Rab Ovin. So they come now in front of Rab Ovin to discuss this halacha. Well, who's right here? So Rab Ovin says, Shaloi hu teveya, that the son is demanding what belongs to him. He's the Yerush, and therefore he doesn't have to let you into the house. Amalei. So Rabbi Yirmiyah said, "But va my sin is sadi. I can bring edus the achziki bei b'chaye the avur that I took possession of this house already while the father was alive." What does that mean? He took possession of it. In order to take possession over a house properly, to be able to prove that it's yours, you have to have lived there for at least 3 years. That's chazakah regarding a piece of land or a house. 3 years. So he says, I can bring you Eidim that I was here for 3 years already. So how can this guy now lock me out of the house? So he has Eidim. So if he has Eidim, he wanted to come and take it away from his brother-in-law. Huh?
3 years after he was there, the story came up.
Yeah, he was there in the life of the... He claims he has Eidim that he was there already for 3 years. But now when the father passes away, the son, Cotton, he took possession of the house and he doesn't want to let his brother-in-law in. So Amalei, so Rav Oven answers him, it doesn't matter if you have Eidim. V'chi mekablen Eidim shaloi b'fnei baldin. Are you allowed to accept testimony from anybody if it's not in the presence of the baldin, of the person that you're arguing with? So over here, since your brother-in-law is a cotton, so we're not going to accept your edus, and too bad, you're going to be locked out of this house. So now the Gemara brings from the brayso that we just had before. So he said, well, is it not true that you could accept edus even if it's not in the presence of the baldin? Didn't we learn in the brayso that we just quoted before? Ben gedolim, ben ketanim, chayavin. In the case of a gzela, which is left in the possession of the children, whether it's gedolim, whether it's ketanim, and the owner brings edim that it was stolen from him, even the children will have to pay. Amalei, so Rav Idi Bar Ravin says, but harei machloikes sumchas betzitcha. But didn't sumchas argue on this? Didn't sumchas say that the ketanim don't have to pay? So Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Ichpol kula alma v'koyke sumchas. The entire world goes out of their way to follow just the opinion of sumchas. La'afkur l'didi, to take away this house from me. What he's basically saying is, who tells you we're passing like sumchas? Did Rabbanan disagree with sumchas? Why would we follow the opinion just of sumchas? So this was now became an argument between Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Bar Ravin whether we passing like sumchas or not in such a case. So Adachi, meanwhile, the Galgal Milsa, this matter developed, and also Matal Kamei de Rabavo, and it came in front of Rabavo to paskin. Could he bring Edim and take this house out of his brother-in-law, which is a cotton, or not? Omar, so Rabavo said, did you not hear what Rav Yosef Bacham said in the name of Rav Yeshia? Tinoik shetakav ba'avodav, a child that has servants that he inherited from his father, and he takes his servants and he goes and he grabs a property from someone. And he goes and he possesses someone's property. And he claims that it belongs to me. So in such a case, we're not going to say, let's wait until this child will be an adult. We're going to take it out of his possession immediately. And then and then we're going to say to this child, when you'll be an adult, you bring Edim, that this property belongs to you. So what do we see over here? That Rabbi Yeshia said that a child that took possession over a property, and then someone else comes and brings Edim, that this property belongs to him, we will accept testimony against the child that's now possessing a property. So therefore over here, who's this over here? Rabbi Vo is taking the side of Rabbi Yirmiyah. He's saying Rabbi Yirmiyah is right. If he's bringing Eidim, that this property, that this house belongs to him, we should listen to the Eidos against this cotton and take it away from his brother-in-law. That's the comparison the Gemara wanted that Rabbi Vo said. But the Gemara says it's not the same thing. Mi dami, how can you compare these cases? Because the lekaimele acheska davua. In that case, what was the story that Rabbi Yeshia said? A child comes along with his servants after his father passed away and goes and takes possession of someone's property. We had no knowledge prior to what this child did that this property ever belonged to his father. They inherited it from his father. So he's going now and grabbing someone's property. So for sure over here, Rabbi Yeshia says, we'll accept Eidos against the cotton to take it away from him. But if it's a case where this child is possessing a property, like over here, the brother-in-law of Rabbi Yirmiyah is possessing the home because there's a chazaka davua, because we have prior knowledge that this home belonged to his father. In such a case, we're not going to take him out of the house because Rabbi Yirmiyah has Edom that it belongs to him. Even if you have Edom, it doesn't matter. In the presence of a cotton, it's like you're not in the presence of the Baldin. In such a case, we're not going to accept the Edom to take it away from him. You're going to have to wait until the child becomes a gadol.
We must say also that the child was in this house the whole time.
Yeah.
Shane came the other, in the other case, he took for the house that he was never in.
Over here, it doesn't make a difference earlier if the child was Rabbi Yirmiyah claimed that he had a chazakah of 3 years earlier. At the time, when the father passed away, the child took now possession of the house, and we know that this house, at a certain point, belonged to his father. True, Rabbi Yirmiyah claims that he possessed it for 3 years, but we have knowledge that this house at a certain point belonged to the father. In the other case, though, what Rabbi Yishua is talking about, it's tam a case, a child goes and grabs someone's property. We have no prior knowledge at all that it ever belonged to his father. That's the difference between these two cases.
You're saying that Yirmiyah had a chazaka and he was living there and the child threw him out. Is that what you're saying?
But the child threw him out before. The child, right now though, the child is possessing the house. Could be the child threw him out, but right now the child, his brother-in-law, the child is possessing the house. Okay, in connection to this, the Gemara brings on Rav Ashi, Rav Shabsoi. Rav Ashi said, Ashi said the halach in the name of Rav Shabsoi, Mekablem edim shaloi b'fnei baldin. You could listen to the words of witnesses, even if it's not in the presence of the other baldin here in this case. But Rav Yochanan wondered about this. Is that true? Could you listen to witnesses in a din Torah where the other person that you're saying testimony against him is not even here? So Rabbi Yossi heard then from Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina heard from Rabbi Yochanan. What did Rav Shabsai mean to say? He meant to say as follows: in a case where this person here is sick, so he needs to bring his edus right now because he's afraid. What happens if I die? And then my children will be stuck. So he wants to bring the edim right now. Or eid of chaylim, or the edim that he wants to bring are also sick. So he has to have them say the testimony before they die. Or the edim that he has there want to travel overseas. So then he's never going to have them available again. And additionally, the case over here is that your baldin, he was sent to Hazmanah to come to Bezdin and he didn't arrive. So in such a case, you could listen to witnesses even not in the presence of the Baldin. Another case, Rav Yudah said in the name of Shmuel, Mekablem Edim Shaloi B'fnei Baldin. We accept the words of Edim even not in front of the other Baldin. So now what did he mean to say? What did Shmuel mean to say? So Ma'ukve said, I heard from Shmuel himself what he was talking about. The case over here is Kagain the Paschale B'dinei. The din Torah already began, which means each one of the Baledinim already said their tainus and Bezdin. And now, one of the Baledinim said, I have edus to bring for my case. Now they sent the other Baldin to come back to the Bezdin to listen to the edus that the other person had. And he didn't want to come back. It's in such a case, when it's already in the middle of the din Torah, then you can bring edus, even if the other person is not here, if he doesn't want to come back. If the din Torah didn't begin yet, in such a case, Matzi Amale, the other person can come and say, Ana lebezdin agadol azilna. I'm not interested in coming b'chlal to this bezdin. The din Torah didn't begin yet. I want to go to the bezdin agadol in Yerushalayim. Over there, we're going to have the din Torah here. I don't want to come to this bezdin. So the Gemara asks, if he has a right to say that he doesn't want to come to this bezdin, he wants to go to a different bezdin, even if the din Torah already began, doesn't he have the right to say, I see matters are getting complicated in this din Torah, I didn't realize it's so complicated, I want to continue the din Torah by a different bezdin in Yerushalayim. He should be able to say that then as well, if he has such a right. Says the Gemara, Amalei, so he explained to him, Sorry, this is all part of the question. Shouldn't he be able to say, even in the middle of the din Torah, that he wants to go to a different bezdin, to the big bezdin in Yerushalayim? Ravina says, the distinction over here that we're making is in the following case. When he has already a letter, when this Baldin has a letter from the Bezdin Gadol in Yerushalayim that says, we give it over to this bezdin. Don't come to us, we give it over to this bezdin and they should be done this din Torah. So this is the case where you make this kind of distinction. If it's before the Din Torah began, the other Baldin could still say, no, it doesn't matter, even if you have this letter, I don't want to begin the Din Torah with this Bezdin. But once the Din Torah began, then if you have a letter from the Bezdin HaGadol, you're going to follow the Bezdin over here. Amar Rav said another halacha about this subject, the Kaimen is Ashtar Shalei B'fnei Baldin. When you have a document and the signatures in this document and you have to verify the signatures, you can come and verify the signatures even not in front of the other Baldin, which the star is going to be used against him. But Rabbi Yochanan says, no, you can't come and verify the signatures in a document if it's not in front of the other Baldin. Amalei Rav Sheshes Rav Yosef Baravo. Rav Sheshes says to Rav Yosef Baravo, Asberoloch time of Rav Yochanan. I'll explain you the reason why Rav Yochanan says that you can't verify a document if it's not in the presence of the other Baldin. Makra, because the Torah says, and this is something we learned earlier in the Masechta regarding a share that gores 3 times and then becomes a muad. That you have to warn the owner, and when he didn't listen, he didn't guard it, so then it becomes a muad. The Torah says, Yavai bala shayr v'yamid al shayr. Bivala means the owner of the ox has to be there when there's an Torah against him. So therefore, regarding the shtar here as well, even though you're not mamish right now yet using the shtar, but you even just to verify the shtar, to then be used against him, it has to be in the presence of the other Baldin. Rav says, the halach is, you could verify a document of a loan, let's say, even if it's not in front of the other Baldin, even if the other person is standing and screaming, you can still, it doesn't matter. He's screaming and saying, don't verify it, I'm coming, I'm not here, doesn't matter. You can verify the document even if it's not in his presence. Now, if the other Baldin says, give me time. Give me time because I'm going to bring Eidos and I'm going to show you that this shtar is not a good shtar. Then naktinale, we give him time. If he comes, he comes. If he doesn't come, so how much time do we give him to bring Eidim to disprove this shtar here? We wait, natrinale bahab. We wait for him on Monday, a Thursday, and the next Monday. This is the time when Bezdin sits. The Bezdin is on Monday, and then they say come to Bezdin on Monday. He doesn't come. He doesn't show up Thursday either. He doesn't show up Monday. Ilayasa, if he doesn't come after a Monday, Thursday, and a Monday, so then we verify the document and kasvinon psicha ilavei tishin yoimin. We write another document. The Bezdin will give out a document for this person now to be able to collect his loan. And psicha actually means it's a certain kind of a level of a chayrim that this person must pay up your loan, and we give him 90 days to pay up the loan. Why 90 days? Plus in kamoi, the first 30 days, we're not going to go by force into his properties to collect this loan, because the because this person can say, the loiva that owes the money could say, I'm trying to borrow money from someone else to pay you. I'm working on getting the money for you. So we give him those 30 days. Mitzia Nami, another 30 days we give him as well. We're not going to go into his properties. The Omar, because this person can say, if I have nobody to borrow money from to pay you, he's still trying to sell off some of his properties to be able to pay you. So we don't come for another 30 days. Now, the third 30 days, another 30 days, we're not going to go into his properties either, because the Omar, because we say, he sold his properties to someone, and now he's trying to collect payment from that buyer to be able to pay up his loan. Now, after 90 days, he still didn't come and pay his loan. Now, now the Bezdin gives them a document of an adrachta. Adrachta means where you have the power, a seizure, to go and force and to possess properties from this loiva to collect your loan. That's if this person comes and says that he's coming. So then we give him all this time. We give him 90 days. If he says right in the beginning that he refuses to pay and I'm not paying, then we give this document of seizure right away that he should be able to go and collect it. And when do we wait all this time that we mentioned the milveh, when it's a loan? So possibly he doesn't have money to pay. But if this is a deposit, which you should have it in your possession. Then if he says he's not paying, then you immediately allow this person to come and seize it and take it away. Now the Gemara says another detail regarding this. When you give this right for seizure to go and collect from this person against his will, you can take from his properties. regarding metaltalin to go and collect from his movable items that you can't collect from him. Why? Because dil mishamit v'achalahu malve. What happens if the metaltali, the malva will collect these movable items and he uses it, he eats it, he destroys it, and then mechi asi loiva or maisi sadi. Then if the loiva will then later come back and bring witnesses that umara le'lishtara and will disprove the whole document that the loan was collected with, he won't be able to recollect, to take back what was taken from him, which was not right, because now it was destroyed already. Now, however, if the malve, the creditor that's collecting this, has kakois of his own, kasvinon, then you could allow him to collect metaltalin, because even if he destroys the metaltalin and it turns out that it was not right, you'll be able to confiscate the properties that he has. But the Gemara says, this is not true. Adrachta metaltli loy kasvinon. We don't allow to see the right this a seizure to go and take from him just from metaltalin. Even though the malva has karka in his possession and he would be able to pay back, and the reason is we're afraid that maybe the properties that he has the hurricane will happen and something will happen and it'll lose its value. The Gemara says one more detail. Let's finish off here. The saying just when you write this adrachte, this right to go and seize properties from a loive, when you write this adrachte, you have to let the loive know that this is happening. The Hani Mili, however, when do you have to let him know? The Mikarev, when he's close by, and you're able to notify him. Aval Merachik, if he's far away, and you can't notify him, you don't have to let him know. However, even when he's far away, and there are people that are close, that you're able to let them know. Inami ikishayarta the ozli v'asu, or there are caravans of people that are traveling to the place there he is, then you're going to have to wait 12 months until people that are traveling there could let him know. So even when he's far, as long as you have people that can travel and let him know, you have to let him know. And the Gemara brings this case that happened, like the case of Ravina which was a loive. They let him know for 12 months. Again, they waited for Marache 12 months until to be able to send a caravan of people to let know to Chuzah, and 12 months they waited. But the Gemara says, you can't learn out from that case. Why not? Hasam inish alime have. This Marache, he was actually the creditor. He was the malva. He's a very, very powerful, very, very strong person. Once he would have got this shtar adrachte to confiscate, to seize from the loive, you wouldn't be able to get it out of him. But over here, in a regular case, if the person is far away, what does it mean far away? You only wait 3 days. When it says a person's far away, you don't have to let him know if it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, and a Thursday. The Gemara says Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday because the Bezdin is usually open on a Monday. So then you give 3 days to be able to let him know. If he's further than 3 days, you don't have to let him know. You can confiscate his properties. Yeah. Yeah, okay.